Good morning, BUC. Good morning, all of you folks who are joining us on Facebook Live. I am Patricia Watson, and I am so grateful to be back. Oh my gosh, it's been a long time. So it feels so wonderful to be here this morning. And I will be with you for the next 4 weeks as well in terms of presiding. So it's so good to see folks, really, even if you're masked, it's so good to see you. The announcements for this week. This is how we're going to be proceeding in the next few weeks with worship and other activities. Communion will take place in the church next Sunday, October 17th. No need to bring anything but yourself. We have a COVID-safe communion service ready, thanks to Ruby Bars Brown. It is time to start thinking about the Beacon House Christmas hampers, which provide food for needy families at the holidays. BUC has been asked to contribute 100 cans of cranberry sauce by the end of November. Please drop off your cans in the marked box, which is beside the little red wagon. The BUC outreach team is also asking for donations of gently used winter coats and jackets, plus winter boots for the Brunswick Street Mission clothing bag. The collection boxes are in the porch, by the way. And the community of Bedford United Church grieves the death of Velma Redden, a longtime member, supporter, Sunday school teacher, and UCW member. Velma died peacefully on Friday morning, surrounded by her family. Funeral arrangements are still being made by the family, so if we could continually hold her and her family in our hearts and our prayers. And I'd like to invite Jeff King up to introduce a new anti-racism book study. Jeff.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to let you guys know that on Tuesday nights from now until November, we're going to be reading the book Raising White Kids. Me, myself, I was raised a white kid, and I was raised colorblind by my parents because they didn't know anything else. It wasn't until I was in my late 30s or when George Floyd happened that I actually realized that colorblind is not the answer. There is injustice happening. And now having a son, I want to be able to talk to him about it and talk to him about race in a healthy way. I don't have all the answers. This book doesn't have all the answers, but we're gathering together to talk about it and to discover how we can educate our kids and talk to them more about this important topic. So there's still spots available. We've only read chapter 1. It's Raising White Kids by Jennifer Harvey. Please email me, jeffrkin@hotmail.com if you guys are interested in joining. Thank you.
We're at Bedford United Church, and I didn't have a chance to find somebody to light the candles, so I'm going to do it. God is here. All the time. All are welcome. All the time.
All are welcome.
Over to you, Tony, and our singers. Woo! Oh, sorry. Land acknowledgement.
So we're just going to take a few moments to do land acknowledgement. We are here on Turtle Island, on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq Nation, the people of the dawn, who have been protectors of this land since time immemorial. The Mi'kmaq welcomed settlers and made peace and friendship treaties with them since 1925. This dealt with living on and the protection of the land and waters of the Mi'kmaqi, and did not give up or trade or buy or sell any land, but left it in dual guardianship for all to live on Mother Earth, and in this case, Mi'kma'ki, in peace, harmony, and in friendship. And so it is. Tony.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to have you stand if you're able. I have no voice today, so it's all up to the faithful crew up here. We're going to begin with every day is a day of Thanksgiving. Seems appropriate. Every day.
Every day is a day of Thanksgiving. God, you've been so good to me. Every day you're blessing me. Every day is a day of Thanksgiving. I will glorify you, oh my Lord, today. You keep blessing me, blessing me. Blessing me. You open the door that I may see. You're blessing me. You keep blessing me, blessing me, blessing me. I will glorify you, oh my Lord, today.
You keep blessing me. You keep blessing me.
Blessing me, blessing me. You open the door that I may see. You're blessing me. You keep blessing me, blessing me, blessing me. I will glorify you, oh my Lord, today.
Every day.
Every day is a day of Thanksgiving. God, you've been so good to me. Every day you're blessing me. Every day is a day of Thanksgiving. I will glorify you, oh my Lord, today.
I will glorify. I will glorify you.
Oh my Lord, today.
I will glorify. I will glorify.
you, oh my Lord, today.
Come and seek the ways of wisdom. Come and
Seek the ways of wisdom. She who died
We have an old chorus to teach you. It'll be new to you. Called God, I Thank You for the Joy of Living. And we'll sing it a couple times and we'll get some hand clapping going here. God, I thank you for the joy of living. God, I thank you for the stars above. God, I thank you for the joy of giving unto others. I thank you for all your tender love. Now, Patricia's up here clapping away. And you're all just standing there rocking. So let's turn the rocking into clapping. All right? God, I thank you for the joy of living. God, I thank you for the stars above. God, I thank you for the joy of giving unto others. I thank you for all your tender love. Sing it again. God, I thank you for the joy of giving. God, I thank you for the stars above. God, I thank you for the joy of giving unto others. I thank you for all your tender love. Sing it again. Sounds good. God, I thank you for the joy of giving. God, I thank you for the stars above. God, I thank you for the joy of giving unto others. I thank you for all your tender love. Wonderful. You may be seated.
Good morning. Today's reading comes from the first chapter of the Gospel of John. Unlike other Gospels, John's Gospel deliberately echoes the creation story of Genesis, and it declares that the Christ consciousness existed long before time began. Today's reading is a unique translation that reflects the dynamic, robust, and powerful activity of the living God, who does not remain at a distance, but draws near by coming into the world with gift upon gift for us, God's beloved creation. Reading from the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verses 1 through 5 and 16 through 18. Before time itself was measured, the voice was speaking. The voice was and is God. The celestial word remained ever present with the Creator. God's speech shaped the entire cosmos. Immersed in the practice of creating, all things that exist were birthed in God. God's breath filled all things with a living, breathing light, a light that thrives in the depths of darkness, blazes through the murky bottoms. It cannot and will not be quenched. We all live off God's creation, generous abundance, gift after gift after gift. We've got the basics from Moses, and then the exuberant giving and receiving, the endless knowing and understanding. All this came through Jesus, the Messiah. No one has ever seen God, not so much as a glimpse. This one-of-a-kind God expression, who exists in every heart of God, has made him as plain as day. Amen.
Thanks, Rena. Good morning. I think most of you know who I am, but if there are new folks with us in the sanctuary here or joining us online, my name's Reverend Katie Aven. I'm one of the ministers here. And I want to make sure everyone can hear me because I'm going to proclaim the gospel, and I need to make sure everyone can hear that. If you can't hear me at any time in my sermon, just do this, okay? That tells me what I need to know, and it tells them in the back what they need to know. So, what'd you think of that reading? That was different, right? That was different. That is the beginning of the Gospel of John. It's really different from the other Gospels. The Gospel of Luke starts with the birth story. We all know that, I think. We hear it every year at Christmas. The Gospel of Matthew starts with the literal genealogy that connects Abraham down to Jesus, because Matthew was writing for a Jewish audience, and he knew that people needed to know that Jesus was a descendant of Abraham, and he was in the house of David, and he's a legit Jew. And then the Gospel of Mark just jumps right into the action. Like Mark starts with the car chase. But not John. John starts really differently, and some of you are familiar with that classic beginning. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Some of us are really familiar with those famous words. But let's be honest. Like, what does that mean? What does Word mean? In the beginning was the Word. Like, what is that exactly? So what it is exactly is the literal translation of the Greek logos. But time and culture and translation don't help us in understanding what logos actually means. And word is kind of a static thing. In my mind, like, I go to prepositions, nouns, adjectives. But that's not what John's talking about. John's in the cosmos. He's at the very center of creation. He's taking us to a time and a place where there is no time or place. There is only God. And he's taking us there because he wants us to know that everything we experience here and now is rooted in that time and place before time and place. He wants us to know that that is the most foundational aspect of reality today. And he wants us to know just how intimately we are connected to that cosmological vision, that all-encompassing foundational reality of grace. Word doesn't always communicate that. So I put together a translation today to try to bring us a little closer to this vision in the Gospel of John. I'm going to read it for you again, because I think it's worth hearing twice. Before time itself was measured, the voice was speaking. The voice was and is God. This celestial word remained ever present with the Creator. God's speech shaped the entire cosmos. Immersed in the practice of creating, all things that exist were birthed in God. God's breath filled all things with a living, breathing light. A light that thrives in the depths of darkness and blazes through murky bottoms. It cannot and will not be quenched. We all live off God's generous abundance, gift after gift after gift. John is not just painting the big picture, he's painting the really big picture. That at the very heart of creation is this action of grace. It's not an idea of grace. It's not a thought of grace. It is the action. It is the actual happening. It is the doing of grace over and over and over again. And John wants us to know that this constant, infinite grace is the most important thing we need to know about God. Grace flows from the deepest part of God, and it is the nature of all things. John wants us to know that grace is the reality from which everything issues. Like, that's a big picture. So if right now there's a lot of like IKEA and Marie Kondo and decluttering, there's a little theme of minimalism working in our culture, and this is not that. Grace is the opposite of minimalism. It is maximalism. Grace is Christian maximalism. There are not enough fawning, extravagant, operatic, eloquent words that I can say about grace. Grace is the light that thrives in the depths of darkness. Grace is what penetrates the murky bottoms. Grace is the eternal summer. It is the hope of the hopeless. It is the deathbed reconciliation. It is the birth of your child. It is the birth of your grandchild. That is grace. It is food that is in front of you 3 times a day. It is the smile from the stranger who lets you go in traffic. And sometimes it is that strange feeling that no matter what's happening in your life, you might be okay. That's what we're on the receiving end of. And we don't get this because we're good people. We get it because we are utterly and entirely created by God. That is the only reason. Our culture tells us that when we are receiving that kind of giving, that we're beholden to pay it back, right, or pay it forward. But that's not grace. Grace isn't about shoulds. It's not about beholden. It's not about discharging debts. It's also not about guilt. We don't need to feel guilty about receiving grace. We don't need to feel guilty about any of that. The nature of grace, when we can recognize it in our lives, it produces in us the natural response of gratitude. When we are able to recognize this ongoing flood of gifts in our life, we have a feeling of gratitude that longs to be expressed. It is not content to sit quietly in our bodies or our minds when we are grateful. And we want to pass along that flow of loving kindness, that feeling of giftedness. And we don't want to pass it along because we think we're going to get something in return. When we feel that sense of gratitude, we pass it along because it feels good to pass it along. It makes us feel good to share that giftedness. It is its own reward. Gratitude can do amazing things. In fact, researchers who measured the frequency of emotional states discovered that gratitude actually resonates at the highest energetic level. It even resonates higher than love. Now, it's really good to be grateful for our stuff. It's good to be grateful that we can pay our bills. It is good to be grateful for our houses. It's good to be grateful that we can afford to raise our kids and spoil our grandkids and take care of our friends. But John really wants us to know that gratitude goes way, way, way beyond stuff. That's tricky in the culture that we live in. But we're in trouble if our gratitude stops at our material blessings that we receive. We're in trouble when we turn grace into an economic vision of gratitude. Because if we stop there, grace becomes a symptom of capitalism rather than an aspect, the nature of existence. Gratitude isn't just giving thanks for our stuff. Gratitude is about how we live into our connections with each other. It's about how we live into our stewardship of the earth and creation. It's about what fuels our ability to care for others and to share freely those good gifts that we have received in our lives. Gratitude can begin from a place of economic blessing. That's cool. We can do that. It can begin there, but it absolutely must continue until we recognize just how far and how wide and how deep and how high gratitude sustains every aspect of our lives, every aspect. When we do that, what we realize is that most of what we have to be grateful for has nothing to do with money. Now, gratitude for God's grace isn't hard when we're feeling good, right? It's a beautiful, warm day. There's the dappled October light coming through the leaves. You know, we're having a good time. We're in a good place in life, so we can catch a glimpse of that vision that John is giving us, right? It's not hard. But then there's times in our lives when gratitude is like the last thing that we're feeling. When we're broken apart by grief, or by ignorance, or by violence, the reality of grace and gratitude becomes obscured. It's really hard to feel grateful in the middle of a tragedy. When our lives change forever in ways that we would never choose, we don't turn around and thank God. And we need to be honest about that. That would be unfeeling and inauthentic. We do not give thanks for all things. We are not grateful for poverty. We are not grateful for strife or suffering. We are not grateful for all things. But the reality of grace means we can be grateful in all things. In our moments of deep pain and grief, and I know as I look out at everyone here and those who I know are online, you know who you are, who I am talking to. Those moments of deep pain and grief, we can acknowledge the help that has arrived, the care that has surrounded us. We can acknowledge that some things or something, even the smallest thing, has gone right. We can see that we are not alone in our troubles. We don't have to pretend we're okay or be grateful for our suffering. But we can be grateful for those things that keep us alive when living feels too difficult. We can do that. And when we feel gratitude for the smallest things in the hardest places, that is when the light thrives in the depths of darkness and blazes through murky bottoms. Our capacity to know and to understand, to comprehend and to apprehend that in good times, in bad times, in the hardest of times, that there is something to be grateful for, that the possibility of gratitude exists beyond our immediate pain, our complications of life. That is faith. That is faith. Because that is when we understand just how far grace travels to arrive at the doorstep of our hearts. And when that gratitude becomes a lived experience, even if it is just a flicker for a moment in the darkness, we become a people of faith that know exactly what John wants us to know. That the most fundamental nature of God and reality is the abundant giving of gift after gift after gift. And when we live in this reality, our hearts stand ready at the door, confident in grace's arrival. We know that. From the absolute beginning of everything, God committed God's self so entirely to this dogged, persistent, constant, infinite gift that God was willing to become totally enmeshed in our worldly affairs and endure human hatred and betrayal and torture and death so that we would know. So that we would know that God so loved the world. So that we would know that God so loves us. Because God came in Jesus, that we would know that we live in God's world. And that is much to be grateful for, and that is good news. Thanks be to God.
Jesus
So the past couple of weeks, I'll set up one more so the people that are in the sanctuary can see me too. So the past couple of weeks, we've been on this theme of gratitude, and Reverend Matt has been leading us through a practice in the sanctuary of lighting candles for prayers for people we are thinking about, for the places in our lives where we need grace. Today we're going to do it a little differently. Today I want to guide you on a practice of experiencing grace through time and through place, in the way that grace is traveling in your life right now. So let's all take a deep breath. I want to invite you to think back to a time in your life. And it may be in the distant past, and it may be in the very near past. Go back to a time of great trouble. And as you look at that from a little distance, notice the help that came. Notice the care that surrounded you. Notice how you got to the other side of that. And I invite you to offer a prayer of thanksgiving for that experience of grace. And I light this candle for all of those prayers, for the grace that was in our lives then. And I invite you to take another deep breath. And consider your life right now, right here, right now, right here. And from a little distance, I invite you to notice the things you cherish most. The things that get you out of bed in the morning. The things that you could not live without. These things are the presence of grace in your life right now. These things that you are grateful for. And I invite you to offer a prayer of thanksgiving for these gifts right here and right now. And now I want you to take a moment and draw out a situation you are anticipating in the future. Perhaps you have anxiety around it, or fear. Perhaps this is a situation in your future that you have no control over. I want you to draw a vision in your mind of how that can go right. I want you to envision gifts arriving. Envision the help coming. Envision the care surrounding you. Envision all of those things coming out of the woodwork in the future to allay your fear and your anxiety. Envision that future. and give thanks now for the gifts that are surely coming to your doorstep. And I light this third candle on behalf of all of those prayers, for the good gifts that are waiting for us in the future. And I give thanks that God's grace moves outside of time, in all time and all places, and in every life. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Craigie, for that beautiful reflection. That was really lovely, meditative. So we're going to take time right now to move into that time where we get to give support Bedford United. We continue to encourage everyone here and online to contribute to the good works that we do here at BUC through our tithes, our e-transfers, and cash. You can also sign up for PAR. And so let us just turn within right now as we bless all that we give, all that we receive, for we are so eternally thankful for all that is given, that it multiplies, and that the giver is blessed and is grateful knowing that it is given and received with gratitude and love. So I am so eternally grateful knowing this truth, knowing that God is the source, God is our supply. And as we continue to live in this state of gratitude and abundance, I am so thankful as I release my word into the law that only says yes. I just allow it to be. And so it is. And so we just take a time right now to have our community prayer, knowing that if you would pray along with me, that there is that one power, that one presence, that one mind, that one intelligence, that one creative force, that one in the universe, that one is God. God is the heart, God is the soul from which everything flows. Each one here within this sanctuary and also on Facebook Live is part of this wonderful and loving and beautiful spiritual community. This love that flows forth so that everyone can see, feel, and hear its presence. Truly, each person is a divine manifestation of all of the qualities of God that are an integral part of our being. That love that shines forth to see, hear, feel is especially experiencing, if folks who are experiencing right now that lack, that sense of frustration, anger, or hurt around the world within this community. We truly know deep within that God is surrounding us, holding us, loving us, being us. And so as I acknowledge this truth for everyone here and around the world, for love truly is the core of our being, that divine love that embraces all, expressing in its entirety. This love is expressed through our thoughts, our actions, through our compassionate heart. We practice and respect the true nature of all life and claim that same good for others that we accept for ourselves. Compassion leads us to join personal responsibility with social conscious, that same love and light that is God. This is a behavior assuming and knowing that all life has nothing against us. It desires our only good. It wants us to be well, happy, and successful in union and unity and cooperation with others. So I pray right here, right now, for peace, for healing, for health, for happiness, for prosperity, for joy, for gratitude, and for unconditional love for us and all of humankind. I accept and gratefully accept this truth. So I just release my word into the law of the universe, into the law of light that always and only says yes, knowing God is the source of our supply. I just let it be, I let it go, and I know it is, and so it is. Amen and amen.
I'd like you to stand with the choir if you are able. We're going to sing together Never Ending Joy.
Never-ending joy, never-ending joy, never-ending joy. Never-ending joy, never-ending joy, never-ending joy. God of every tribe, every language, God of every river and sea, God of every mountain and island, you bring joy to me. Never-ending joy, never-ending joy, never-ending joy. Never-ending joy, never-ending joy, never-ending joy. God of every hill, every valley, God of every leaf, every tree, God of every cloud, every raindrop, you bring joy to me. Never-ending joy, never-ending joy, never-ending joy. Never-ending joy, never-ending joy, never-ending joy. God of every song, every story, God of every captive set free, God of every dance, every footstep, you bring joy to me. Never-ending joy, never-ending joy, never-ending joy. Never-ending joy, never-ending joy, never-ending joy.
So as we go forth, this is something when I was a little girl, that we used to sing at the end of service. So I'm going to just sing sort of the first verse of it. Blessed be the ties that bind our hearts in Christian love, the fellowship of kindred mind is like to that above. So as we go forth on this beautiful and glorious fall day, and leading into a beautiful holiday tomorrow, Thanksgiving, I wish you all love, health, wellness,
and a beautiful, beautiful day. Many blessings. Thank you.